My name is Vedant Mishra, and now I will explain the rest of the chapter. Eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village of Epping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn, which means after robbing all the money from the shopkeeper, he was very anxious to leave London and took a train to move to the village of Epping, where he rented 2 rooms at a small hotel. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly, but Griffin had no desire to talk and told her, "My reason for coming to Epping is a desire for solitude. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. Besides, an accident has affected my face." And the meaning of this is coming of a strange person at an inn in winter was an abnormal event. Griffin was looking very uncommon, which started people gossiping about him. Mrs. Hall, who was the landlady of that inn, tried to be familiar with him, but Griffin did not talk to her. He told her that his reason for coming to Epping was a desire for loneliness. He did not want himself to be disturbed in his work, and lied her that an accident had affected his face. Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist, and in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper. But the stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. And the meaning goes like, after listening to Griffin's statement, Mrs. Hall was convinced that he was unconventional or uncommon scientist, and was ready to excuse his strange activities and easy to get irritate nature, as he had paid her the rent of the 2 rooms in advance. But the stolen money did not last for a long time, and Griffin told her that his money in ready cash is over now. He acted like that he could give a check for more payment at any time. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in their study. Creeping downstairs, they heard the chink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. And the meaning of this is, after some time, a strange event happened there. In early morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by some noises when they were studying in their study room. When they started coming downstairs, they could hear the sound of money being taken from clergyman's desk. Without making any noise, and with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door. "Surrender," which means the clergyman held a metal rod firmly without making any noise and opened the door by pushing it. He said, "Surrender." Then, to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There was not a sign of anybody. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. But they were surprised to find no one in the room. They looked under the desk, behind the curtains, and up the chimney also, but anyone was not there. The desk was opened by them, and the housekeeping money was missing. "Extraordinary affair," the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. The clergyman kept on saying that it was an extraordinary affair whole day, because it was a very strange incident. But the incident that happened to Mrs. Hall's furniture later that morning was something more strange than clergyman's incident. The landlord and his wife were up very early, and were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Usually it was shut and locked, and he was very furious if anyone entered his room. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. They peeped round the door, saw nobody, and decided to investigate. The bedclothes were cold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time, and the stranger still. The clothes and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. Mr. and Mrs. Hall woke very early that morning, and were surprised to see the scientist's room door open. Usually it was closed and locked, and he used to get angry when anyone tried to enter his room. It was an opportunity which they wanted to grab anyhow. They looked inside the room and started to investigate it, when they found no one in there. His bed sheets were cold, which assured that the scientist must have been up for a while, and all the clothes and bandages which he used to wear always were lying around the room. All of a sudden Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. A moment later the hat on the bedpost leaped up and dashed itself into her face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Springing into the air, it charged straight at her, legs foremost. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room, and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. Suddenly Mrs. Hall heard a sniff near her ear, and Griffin's hat, which was lying on the bedpost, rose up and hit Mrs. Hall's face. Then the chair in the bedroom jumped in the air and hit her on her legs. They both were very scared and were going out of the room. The strange chair pushed them out of the room, and the sounds of slamming and locking the door were heard after them. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits, and that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. Mrs. Hall was very terrorized by the incident, and was about to fall from the stairs. She thought that there were spirits in that room, and the stranger scientist had caused all this to her inn's furniture. "My poor mother used to sit in that chair," she moaned. "To think it should rise up against me now." She cried slowly in sadness that her mother used to sit in that chair, and how could it rise up against her now? The feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft, but witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not long before that he had no money. The neighbors of Mrs. Hall thought that all these things happened because of black magic. When the news of theft at clergyman's house reached other people in the town, everyone started suspecting the strange scientist. The feeling of being suspect grew more when he suddenly arranged some ready cash, even it was not much time when he had told that he had no money. The village constable was secretly sent for. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist, who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. The village constable was called secretly. Mrs. Hall did not wait for him and went to the scientist as he had appeared from the empty bedroom. "I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs," she demanded, "and I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room." She asked him what he had been doing upstairs to her chair. She also asked how did he come out of an empty bedroom and how he entered a locked room. The scientist was always quick-tempered. Now he became furious. "You don't understand who or what I am," he shouted. "Very well, I'll show you." The scientist became very angry and started shouting that they don't know who or what he was, and decided to show them the truth. Suddenly he threw off bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at a headless man. Suddenly he removed all his bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and nose. It took him only a minute to do all that, and the people in the bar were horrified as they were watching a man without head. Mr. Jeffers, the constable, now arrived, and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. But Jeffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then that person had to be arrested, with or without his head. Constable Mr. Jeffers arrived and was surprised to see that he had to arrest a man without any head. But Jeffers still had to do his job, as it was magistrate's order to arrest him, and it did not matter whether he had a head or not. There followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Finally a shirt flew into the air, and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Some people tried to help him, but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. As Griffin removed more and more of his clothes, he became more and more invisible, which made it more difficult for Jeffers to catch him. When Griffin removed his shirt, he was totally invisible, and the constable was struggling to arrest a person whom he could not see. People who tried to help him were hit by blows from nowhere. In the end, Jeffers was knocked unconscious as he made a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. There were nervous, excited cries of "Hold him!" but this was easier said than done. Griffin had shaken himself free, and no one knew where to lay hands on him. As Jeffers made his last attempt, he was knocked unconscious by the invisible man. Everyone was shouting, "Hold him!" but this was very tough to be done as Griffin had set himself free from them and no one knew how to catch him. So this was the whole chapter and I hope you understood it. Thank you.